Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. Today's conversation will be about the impact of AI, specifically Tinyclues customer marketing solution on customer marketing and retail. And I am joined today by Francois Laxalt, VP of Product Marketing for Tinyclues. Hi Francois, thank you for being with us. Can you tell us all a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everybody. I'm Francois Laxalt. I'm the VP of Product Marketing for Tinyclues. I've been working for the MarTech industry for the last 25 years. That's very long, with different roles, just such as Head of Customer Marketing for HSBC for 6 years, or Product Marketing Director for Adobe for more than 11 years. It's my pleasure to be with you today to discuss how AI can help marketers growing their business and increase customer experience.
Well, thank you, Francois. We also have the pleasure of having Sebastian Selhorst, Principal Consultant for Forrester, with us today. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, hello, everyone. My name is Sebastian Selhorst. I'm a Principal Consultant at Forrester Research, and I'm specialized in analyzing the financial impact of technology solutions in general. But today, in particular, I wanted to speak to you about a very specific case study that looks at the financial impact that Tinyclues customer marketing solution had on a large retailer. So more to it in a little bit later in the webinar. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sebastian. And finally, we have Rusty Warner, Principal Analyst for Forrester. Thanks for joining with us, Rusty.
Sure, thank you, Ryan, and thanks everyone for joining the webinar. As Ryan said, I'm Rusty Warner. I'm a Principal Analyst at Forrester, and I cover enterprise marketing technology, which of course has become a very broad category in the marketplace. I work with end user clients on how they build their MarTech ecosystems, and I also spend quite a bit of time with our vendor clients understanding their solutions and their impact and value to all of you as end users.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Rusty. Before we get started, guys, we're going to go over the agenda. Rusty Warner, of course, will be covering the future of marketing and marketing moments. Sebastian Selhorst will be covering the presentation of results from the TEI case study, and Francois Laxalt will be covering the impact of the AI augmented customer marketing. And without further delay, I'll be passing things over to Rusty.
Great, thank you very much, Ryan. And as we get started, you'll see this pop up a few times during the webinar, but we are giving you a link to the Tinyclues website where you can download the total economic report that we're talking about today. That is a report that Tinyclues commissioned with Forrester. Both Sebastian and I were involved working with Tinyclues and Francois and his team to develop this report that looks at the return on investment and financial impact to the business of implementing the Tinyclues marketing solution. And this particular case study focuses on a large retailer. But to get us started today, I'm going to set the stage by talking a little bit about what customers expect from marketers today. And all of us, no matter what we do in our day jobs, are of course consumers, so we know that our expectations continue to rise when we are interacting with different brands. And we really appreciate it when a brand gets the experience right and provides us with individualized treatment. That does mean, however, if you're a brand marketer, that you have to win in that moment that matters to all of us and all of your consumers, as opposed to when it's the right time for the brand to be sending a communication. Now, that bar for customer expectations continues to rise. And like I said, we're all consumers as well as whatever we do in our day jobs, and so we know this. We also know that there are mega brands like Apple or Facebook or Google or Amazon who continue to provide great customer experience. And then every time one of those mega brands provides something really cool, we begin to expect that from the other brands that we're doing business with. Now, to help those brands out, of course, there are lots of devices and touch points that we're using, and that generates a lot of data. So there is a lot of customer context which is available to a brand about its consumers. But it's really hard to harness that and turn it into value that you can pass back to those customers. That's why I'd like to call your attention to that tiny customer you can see here on the screen who has that massive brain on his back. It turns out that inadvertently, we as brands sometimes make things harder for our customers. We have all of this data. We try to leverage that to do the right thing and personalize the experience, but sometimes we just get it wrong, and we actually make it harder for the customer to do business with us. And that's what we have to avoid, and that's part of what we're here to talk about today. Now, to address that customer in the moment that's going to matter to him or to her, our marketing technology investments have to change. We're no longer in this world of a traditional funnel where we acquire customers and we upsell and cross-sell and grow those customers and turn them into advocates. Instead, we have to communicate with customers across the entire customer life cycle. And for marketing, that means that you're no longer just responsible for acquisition or getting that first conversion. You're responsible for working with your commerce team and your merchandisers, your sales, and your service people across that entire customer life cycle. Because the moment that matters most to the customer could occur outside of one of these life cycle phases that we traditionally associate with marketing. And that means that your MarTech investments are going to be different. In today's world, most organizations are still focused on cross-channel campaigns where they are developing segments and they're sending those campaigns on outbound channels like email or print or in some cases mobile messaging. And a lot of organizations are evolving to a point where they can do better segmentation, micro-segmentation or targeting, where they are able to capture customer behavior, and that behavior will trigger a message or a communication in a reactive way. And that's really good, but moments-based is going to turn that up even further, where we'll need to be more predictive in terms of anticipating the customer requirement. We'll have to leverage real-time data, and in turn, we'll need to communicate in real time as opposed to in a reactive way where we're retargeting someone after the fact. And we'll have to do this on a more individualized basis. Now, I understand if you're looking at this, you probably think that this is a very scary maturity model with a really steep learning curve in terms of its evolution. But don't panic, because in reality, I wouldn't expect any of you to move from cross-channel to behavior-based to being a moments-based organization entirely. You will continue to leverage your cross-channel campaigns and your behavior-based targeting along with your moments-based marketing. These things will all coexist in your ecosystem, so they don't really replace each other as you move up in terms of your capability. Your campaigns that you do on outbound channels will continue to be very important ways for you to reach out to your customers. But you do have to think about how those campaigns are going to connect with and align with what you're doing with behavior-based targeting and with moments-based communications with your customers. Now, I mentioned that those investments that you're going to make are changing as you move toward the ability to offer more moments-based capability. And there are several areas that I think you need to think about. One is identity resolution. You need to recognize customers across devices. You also need to understand the real-time context. And that might be in terms of the customer, or it might actually be external factors like what day is it? What time is it? What's the weather like? What's just happened in the news? And all of those things might impact the customer context. Then you're going to need analytics and artificial intelligence in order to determine what you should do next. You'll need to connect that offer to the appropriate channels so that you can orchestrate the customer engagement. And then finally, you'll need to capture everything you can about that interaction so you can measure and not only report on what happened, but optimize everything you're doing with that individual customer, as well as leverage that insight to optimize for all of your customers. Now, I understand that those technologies can be rather complex, so we've tried to put them into two buckets for you. There are what we call systems of insight and systems of engagement. So your data, your analytics, and your insight engines are all systems of insight, and then your content, your marketing automation systems, and the channel delivery of those interactions would become your systems of engagement. Now, we've shown these separate here, but in reality, it is a continuous connection between your systems of insight and systems of engagement. What you want to work toward is a data ingestion and data management capability that lets you build customer profiles so that you can apply your analytics to understand those customers. You can plan and develop content that will help you execute your brand strategy, and then you can deliver that across marketing, advertising, loyalty, but also non-marketing functions like commerce and sales and customer service. As you're making these investments, I would caution you that the data and analytics required to do this and do it well will be huge. And the scale and sophistication, in fact, is outpacing the ability of humans to keep up with it. And that's where we see a real opportunity for artificial intelligence. So the difference between traditional marketing and the level of data and analytics you need for modern marketing, where you understand those customers and deliver more of a moments-based engagement strategy, will come down to the ability of your organization to deploy machine learning and artificial intelligence. We wouldn't say that you do that as a black box. We would say that instead there's an opportunity for that artificial intelligence to complement what you're doing with the people in your organization and all of that incredibly powerful creativity and thinking that you already have in your organization. There are use cases where we're already seeing a lot of value for organizations that have embraced artificial intelligence, and we're going to talk about some of those in the rest of the webinar. But whether you are trying to create audiences, optimize or personalize offers, understand individual customer journeys, figure out where you should be spending your media dollars or pounds or euros, or indeed how you attribute customer behavior and success to different allocations of your budget, or how you measure your ROI, are all areas where artificial intelligence can come into play and can help you and complement what you're doing with a marketing organization. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Francois, and he's going to take us through the next part of the presentation, looking specifically at how Tinyclues delivers against some of these things that we were just talking about.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Rusty. I really love the idea of moments. I mean, I think it's very true and aligned with what I hear from a lot of marketers right now. But I think that to be moment-based, marketers absolutely need to solve the relevance problem, because as of today, relevance is still a myth. I mean, there is this great piece of research from Forrester where you guys asked consumers about the relevance of the messages they received. Guess what? Only 5% said messages were well-timed with the needs. At the same time, when asked what would happen if messages were relevant, 91% of those customers said that it would make them more likely to buy. So it means that there is a huge growth opportunity for companies, but for now, the lack of relevance is preventing them from increasing performance. This graph represents the classic campaign process when using an ESP or a campaign management solution. So after the implementation phase, marketers are starting to send generic campaigns. Then they add trigger messages and targeted campaigns. But when it's done, I would say after 12 months, everything works well and there is no room for improvement. relevance is still low, consumers feel it, and you're reaching a plateau. So what's preventing marketers from going beyond that plateau? From discussions with hundreds of retailers and travel companies over the years, I can highlight three main barriers. The first one is that automated campaigns can scale. By automated, I mean trigger messages and lifecycle campaigns, just like cart abandonment, product viewed, or birthday offers. We know they work well, but they touch a very small percentage of your customers. And you cannot increase the volume without damaging customer experience and your business. Check out this example from a Forever 21 customer. They shared on Reddit a screenshot of their inbox, showing that they received 20 messages in only 24 hours. So, if automated campaigns can scale, the only way to scale your business is to send more and better targeted campaigns. Targeted campaigns are designed to solve a very simple business problem. You have a product that you want to sell or you need to sell. The challenge is finding the customers interested by this product at the time of the campaign, at the moment of the campaign. And campaign targeting is very often suboptimal. Let's take an example and say that we have to send a campaign next week to sell this expensive barbecue. How would we typically create the target? Most marketers would target past buyers. Makes sense, even if we are not buying barbecue every year, right? We would also include customers with recent intent, like product page visitors, etc. But it gives too small of an audience. So you need to add more customers using your predefined segments. In the case of a barbecue, you would probably exclude people living in city centers and include high-income customers as it's an expensive barbecue. You would most likely include people who already bought gardening products in the past, as it's the same category. And probably also limit the target to only men. Well, because it's well known that men are the only ones buying barbecues, right? Think that's a stereotype? I do too. And that's exactly the problem with segmentation. It's a highly simplified view of reality. So you have your final target, but it's based on preconceptions and it's suboptimal. So for marketers, the business consequences are twofold. First, you're leaving a lot of revenue on the table. Because of the arbitrary approach based on segments and rules, many of the potential buyers are not included in your target. Those potential buyers may not buy at all, or even worse, they may buy from your competitor if your competitor is better at delivering relevant messages at the right moment. The second consequence is poor customer experience. Low conversion rate means that roughly 99% of your customers who received your message were not interested in buying your product. They're probably annoyed and feel bombarded with irrelevant messages. So to deliver value to customers and to your company, actually it takes more than just fixing campaign targeting. It also requires managing a long and complex campaign process across many stakeholders. And the barrier number 3 is exactly that, complex campaign workflows. So this is a campaign workflow example from a retailer I've worked with. But I'm sure most of you have seen similar processes. A campaign involves at least 3 persona: a business person expressing the need to sell products, a campaign manager responsible for setting up and executing the campaigns, and a data scientist for customer insights and creating the targets. For a typical workflow like this one, there is a lot, well, way too many actually, back and forth. The business person wants to sell more products. The campaign manager needs to guess the right target or ask the data scientist. The data scientist doesn't have the time. The campaign manager needs to deal with many overlapping campaigns, etc., etc., and etc. So it's a long, resource-intensive, and definitely suboptimal process. So if you consider the 3 barriers to better marketing performance, we see that it's very possible to optimize your customer campaigns and increase performance when your MarTech stack requires you to micromanage business rules, segments, and workflows while embracing billions of customer data points. So we need to shift to a new paradigm called systems of intelligence. And this is where AI enters the game. Systems of intelligence are based on cutting-edge AI technologies, just like deep learning, that leverage the billions of data points about your customers and augment marketers' capabilities. They are not replacing systems of rules, but instead they are complementing your existing solutions to unleash revenue growth. With systems of intelligence, marketers are augmented with predictive and prescriptive features enabling them to simply express business objectives like, I need to sell more of this product. I need to increase the RPM for my partner campaigns by 20%, while the AI does all the legwork. And actually, this is what we do at Tinyclues. So we are a SaaS solution designed to augment marketers' capabilities by helping them to optimize campaigns, topics, plans, and audiences across all addressable channels to drive outstanding impact with an average of plus 79% uplift in campaign revenue and plus 51% customer engagement. The solution is a system of intelligence complementing your ESP or CRM using only first-party data and anonymized data. The setup is really straightforward and takes weeks, not months, and our clients have measured business impact in 3 months. As a company, we have more than 100 clients using the solution across 15 countries from US, EMEA to APAC. Let's have a look at how the solution works. The first thing is providing an AI augmented campaign targeting. At the core of Tinyclues, our unique AI technology is able to find customers willing to buy any product at any given moment. As a marketer, I can select a campaign date, knowing that Tinyclues will find customers willing to buy only in the days after that campaign. Then I can select the channel, email, SMS, Facebook, direct mail, push, whatever, and the solution will optimize the audience for the selected channel. The marketer has access to the entire product catalog and can select any product, combination of product or category. How does it work? If we look at our barbecue example, well, instead of spending time and energy trying to guess which segments should be targeted, Tinyclues is able to identify among all customers which ones have a very high chance to buy the product at the moment of the campaign. AI does not care if a customer is in a predefined segment like VIP or recent buyers. It simply finds the buyers. And in our example, we see that it is going beyond preconceptions like outdoor segments, and of course finds buyers among women or even within inactive customers. So for each campaign, Tinyclues recommends the optimal volume, but marketers are in control and can set up their own volume, objectives, and fatigue limits. So with this approach, only customers interested in your products are targeted, increasing campaign performance and reducing fatigue. But in order to solve the broader customer marketing challenge, we also need to remove complexity from your campaign processes. And thanks to its AI-first approach, the solution has radically reinvented the campaign workflow. The interface is super simple with 5 screens and 5 clicks per campaign. As marketers, you're in control of all steps, and you don't even need to rely on other people like data scientists. You have access to a real campaign calendar where you can easily set up all your campaigns. You can easily define your fatigue management strategy, and Tinyclues will automatically optimize your campaign plan to increase business impact and reduce fatigue. It takes 3 minutes for a campaign and 30 minutes for a busy weekly plan. As a result, by solving both the targeting and planning challenges, Tinyclues frees marketers from guesswork and unleashes the power to address strategic campaign goals. The process is now simple, straightforward, and effective. More than 100 companies are augmenting their customer marketing with Tinyclues. Our clients are coming from various industries like travel, hospitality, retail, and e-commerce, with revenues ranging from $50 million to billion-dollar companies. With an NPS of 65, we're really proud of having very happy clients. One of the main reasons being that they have measured tangible business impact in a very short period of time. Actually, we like to say that marketers love Tinyclues because Tinyclues deliver big results. On average, our clients have measured an outstanding plus 79% increase in the campaign revenue and a significant decrease of 80% in the time to create a campaign. And because Tinyclues helps you to reach real relevance, the unsubscription rate decreased by 19% and the customer engagement increases by 51%. So if you want to get more details about those numbers, I encourage you to visit our website where we have dozens of success stories with similar results. But even if those results are coming directly from our clients, as a company, we really wanted to have an independent validation of the ROI of Tinyclues. And that's why we commissioned Forrester to apply its TEI methodology on a very large retail client. I will now let Sebastian, Principal Consultant at Forrester, explain the methodology and the results.
Yeah, thank you, Francois. I So I cannot speak to what Tinyclues customers achieve on average, but I have a very concrete example to share with you because, yeah, as François mentioned, Tinyclues had commissioned this Forrester to provide this independent financial case study. And with independent, I also mean that obviously Forrester does not endorse Tinyclues or its offerings. Rather, the objective of this case study was to analyze the potential return on investment that a retailer can achieve by deploying Tinyclues solution. And for this, I had the opportunity, or we had the opportunity to interview one of Tinyclues customers, a large European retailer. And we asked them about their initial pain points, their objectives, why they had invested in Tinyclues solution, how much they had to spend over the years, what they get in return, and we try to quantify this in financial terms. And so this case study here, as you see, is called the total economic impact of Tinyclues customer marketing solution for a large retailer. And before I present the main findings, maybe just let me say a word to what we mean by total economic impact. Let me see if I can, move the slides. And so at Forrester, we have developed a kind of framework to evaluate the financial return of technology investments. And we call it the total economic impact, or in short, TEI. We do not only look at the total costs of a given investment, but want to provide a complete economic picture of that technology investment. So in addition to costs and cost savings, we also look at all areas where value has been created and where options for realizing future benefits might have been created. We call this latter flexibility. And finally, we use risk adjustments to account for the uncertainty surrounding the cost and benefit estimates. So the four elements of benefits, costs, flexibility, and risk together form what we call the total economic impact. So now back to our case study here. One of the people we interviewed at this large retailer was the digital marketing director. And he told us that he finds that Tinyclues has a really unique value proposition. Before engaging with Tinyclues, they had not really imagined a solution, but they found that Tinyclues is addressing this actual need that was just latent for them. And maybe some of you are in a similar position today. So this case study is based on this experience, the experience of this particular large European retailer. They chose to remain anonymous in this case study, but to give you an idea about their size, so what I can tell you is that they have an annual revenue of more than 2 billion euros and send more than 100 million marketing email messages to their customers per month. And before the investment in Tinyclues, their campaign managers were working with a couple of support staff and data scientists to plan, execute between 10 or to 15 email campaigns per week. And so what the company really wanted to do was to generate more revenues from their email campaigns, while at the same time not to increase the customer fatigue and thus lose contacts. Now, with the introduction of Tinyclues, they told us that they improved campaign targeting and generated more revenues out of it. Their campaign processes are more efficient now, and they improved their customer fatigue management in general. So on the achievements side, we were able to quantify 4 benefits in financial terms together with the interviewees. So the first one is about better targeted email campaigns. The second benefit is about the ability to run completely new or more niche email campaigns. The third benefit is about new trade marketing deals. And these 3 benefits here are measured as incremental profit for the organization. And finally, there's also productivity gains for the people involved in creating and managing these campaigns. They are measured as time savings. And we will go into some more detail in each of these benefits in a moment. But based on the data we collected from this retailer, we built a financial framework and ran the numbers over 3 years. That was the time of the investment. The return on investment for this large retailer was 199%. That means for every euro invested, the retailer got 2.99 euros back. The NPV, that is the net present value, which includes all the benefits minus all the costs. So the NPV of this whole investment is 1.5 million euros, and the payback was estimated to 8 months. Here's another quote from this retailer, this time from the head of CRM operations. And he told us, for example, that due to better targeting and improved fatigue management with Tinyclues, they had measured an increase in the email campaign open rate of 2 base points, which he described as a tremendous result for his organization, especially considering that they sent more than 100 million messages per month. Now let's take a few minutes to look at the 4 benefits that we quantified in the case study in a little bit more detail. I'd like to call out a few highlights, but please keep in mind that you can find more details in the case study itself. So the first benefit is about the better targeted email campaigns. So the interviewees described to us how Tinyclues helped them to create much more targeted audiences. While the average number of emails sent per campaign has decreased, the number of email campaigns per month has more than doubled. So they are doing more campaigns, but they are much more targeted. As a result of the increased relevance, the interviewees told us that the organization achieved an average uplift in the campaign revenue of between 10 and 30%. So 10% for the very large multi-product campaigns and up to 30% for the smaller, really more targeted campaigns. And so in the table at the bottom here, you can see a few of the main metrics that went into our calculations. Here we have the average number of campaigns per month. This was increasing over the years from 50 to 150 per month. The average number of contacts targeted, the average uplift that I mentioned earlier, the average profit margin for this retailer. And finally, we risk adjusted this benefit down by 10% just to be more conservative and to take into account the uncertainty of these assumptions or monthly averages that we work with in this business case. So, and even after this risk adjustment, so this benefit is still worth 1.1 million euros in incremental profit over the 3 years. And this is really the profit I'm speaking about. The incremental revenue is more than 5 million euros. The second benefit is about the ability of running new email campaigns for new or niche products. The head of CRM operations that you interviewed told us that it used to be very difficult for them to identify potential buyers for those new or niche products. It was nearly impossible to execute these campaigns in an efficient, profitable manner, he said. Tinyclues now helps them to find the right target audience for even these types of products. And he said that the deep learning can uncover opportunities and affinities between customers and products that the company could not have discovered manually. Again, you'll find the main assumptions here in the table below. The retailer estimated that between 7 and 20 niche campaigns were sent per month. So ramping up over the years, on average targeting 300,000 contacts each. And after, again, 10% risk adjustment, this benefit still represents 544,000 euros in incremental profit over 3 years, or 2.7 million euros in incremental revenue. Now, this retailer also told us that Tinyclues allows them to win more trade marketing deals from their vendors and partners. And this is because the company can now run efficient email campaigns at the product or brand levels, something they were not really able to do before. So these types of campaigns perform better now, and manufacturers and partners see higher return on their trade marketing spend and therefore are inclined to spend more with this retailer. So this opened a whole new revenue stream for the interviewed retailer, starting from the second year really. And so after a risk adjustment of 20%, because we worked with more high-level estimates, this benefit represents 466,000 euros in incremental profit. And finally, we quantified the productivity gains for the campaign managers and data scientists. So the interviewed organization has reduced the time it takes to create custom audiences for specific marketing campaigns from a couple of days, as I say, to just 5 minutes. And this frees up time for the campaign managers, data scientists, support staff, that they can reallocate to more value-add activities. And so together with the retailer, we assumed that by year 3, the retailer was able to reallocate 3 full-time resources that way. And with a 10% risk adjustment, again, this benefit has an estimated value of 260,000 euros over 3 years. Now, on the cost side, there are 3 main categories of costs we considered. So the technology costs, these mainly represent the Tinyclues fees, but also include professional services, support costs, and they represent, have been estimated to 722,000 euros over the 3 years. The initial setup was done in approximately 10 weeks, and the costs have been estimated to approximately 34,000 euros for this interviewed retailer. And then training and ongoing operational costs have been estimated to 21,000 euros over the 3 years. And they include an estimated 20 hours per month of incremental internal efforts related to managing the data feeds, overall governance, and incremental efforts to manage the new trade marketing deals that are now possible. So in total, we look at an investment of approximately 778,000 euros for this retailer over the 3 years. And so putting it all back together, the benefits on the one side, the cost on the other. So the interviewed retailer achieved a risk adjustment return on investment of 199%, a net present value of 1.5 million euros, as I mentioned. That's the difference between the total benefits of 2.3 million euros and the total cost of approximately 778,000 euros that we saw, and an estimated resulting payback period of 8 months. Now to close this part out, I wanted to leave you with this quote, which I found very powerful. This one is from the digital marketing director from this retailer. So he told us that Tinyclues has changed the way they think about customer marketing. They moved from a traditional one-to-many approach to a one-to-few messaging and are looking to go all the way to a one-to-one approach. He described that this is a real game changer. He added that the key for success in retail is personalization, as we also heard before, and that Tinyclues helps them in this journey. So that was my brief overview about the case study, a very concrete example of how Tinyclues helped a retailer to generate more email campaign revenues without increasing customer fatigue. And if you want to learn more, I would encourage you to read the full case study that's available here under this, this link. And yeah, I think with this, we can probably open it up to questions. Hand it back maybe to Ryan.
Perfect. Thank you, Sebastian. And we will now move to the Q&A portion of today's event. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A button. I do see 2 questions are already in there.
Hi, it's Francois here. I can handle maybe the 2 questions. So I see that the first one is about the average of plus 79% campaign uplift. Actually, it's an average, and the question is about what's the lowest and the highest uplift we have seen. For sure, it really depends on the type of the companies, but the very minimum has been 30% in terms of the campaign revenue uplift, and it's for very large companies with really skilled in a kind of data science and with great targeting processes. The highest is roughly 350%, something like that, for smaller companies, less experienced in customer marketing. So that's the, but plus 71% is the average across all our customers. There is another question about the size of the retailers we are working with. So we are working with kind of very large retailers and kind of mid-sized retailers. Mid-sized meaning at least 50 million euros or dollars in terms of revenue to, I mean, multi-billion dollar companies, just like the one that has been used for the TEI research. Oh, and a great question from Lydie. I don't know, maybe Rusty, you want to take that one? Because I remember having the same question 10 years ago, right? But Rusty, maybe you want to...
Yeah, I see the question is...
In 10 years, does...
Yes, Francois, I see that the question is asking, in 10 years, does email continue to exist? Well, 10 years is a very long time for me to look into my crystal ball, but I think certainly over the next several years, email continues to exist. I think we're seeing lots of interesting capabilities where email is concerned, where email is becoming more of a real-time channel, where we are seeing a lot more dynamic content in those emails, where we're seeing them be a lot more tailored to individuals instead of segments. And the other thing I would say is that if you are working only with your email service provider, it may be that you're not seeing all of those innovations. I think that some of the big ESPs are very good at what they do and are focused on ensuring that they've got a great user experience and that they give you great scalability in terms of the number of messages and optimizing the send time and making sure that the deliverability is in place. But more of the personalization and the dynamic content innovation is actually coming from a lot of smaller vendors that those big email service providers partner with. We heard today from Tinyclues. There are others that focus more on content personalization and the emotional composition and impact of your content. So lots of innovation that's going on, I think, in email. It's just perhaps not coming from the big ESPs themselves, who are perhaps focused on some of the core email capabilities.
Okay, we don't have any other question, I guess. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending this webinar, and especially Rusty and Sebastian for sharing the vision on the future of customer marketing and their TEI methodology. If you want to know more about Tinyclues, feel free to visit our website, www.tinyclues.com, and don't forget to download the TEI report. You can also reach me directly on LinkedIn or by email, francois.laxalt@tinyclues.com. Thanks, everybody, and the recording will be available very soon, so if you want to kind of review the slides and view this webinar again, feel free to do so.
Well, thank you, Rusty, Francois, and Sebastian, and thank you to all viewers for joining us. This concludes today's session.